preparing live. Live on custom streaming, preparing live stream the webinar, setting up your webinar. It's feeling official. Webinar is now streaming live. Okay, it says it's streaming live. That makes me think that it is really streaming live. Allie, I will distract them while you you see if it's live on Facebook, etc. But those of you tuning in, is it there?
I create fire. I am none.
I made fire. We created live stream. Yes, awesome stuff.
Okay, hold
Good.
on.
I like it. Yeah,
All right.
what's that?
We're
doing it.
Out the interwebs, people. We're figuring out the interwebs.
The interwebs are now happening. So those of you tuning in, here's what I want you to know. Allie and I are calling this Groundswell Live. These are a new featured episode from Groundswell Agency called Groundswell Live, where we answer your questions about content marketing, finding your purpose in business and life. And that is what we're doing here today. So, Allie, I think we're good. I think the technology is all synced up and working.
I think so. I mean, I don't know if if there's a Q&A box, but I don't know if people can actually ask us questions.
I think the Q&A box is more just if they were attending the webinar version of this in Zoom. So if you guys have questions, I would imagine you should put them on Facebook because we didn't invite you to this webinar. We're just broadcasting our webinar to the world. So if you have questions, you should put them in the comments. And if we don't answer them here on this call, then what we'll do is we'll actually circle back later and look after we hang up this webinar deal. We'll go back and answer your questions in the comments. So
yeah, I've got my handy dandy little phone here. So
I like it. Okay. Well,
let's kick off to the races.
Let's kick it off. Let's go. This is Groundswell Live. We are coming to you today to answer questions that we've been receiving about content marketing in general, as well as just the problems people have getting into content marketing. So I'll toss it to you, Allie, and then you can toss it back to me if you want.
Yeah, well, I think a big frame to put on all of this is that we get these questions all day long. And I think a lot of people, we're in business, we're marketers as well. We're not here though to solve these problems or help give you answers just so you buy our shit. If you want to buy our shit, great, buy our shit.
Yep.
But our mission truly at Groundswell is to help you with your own Groundswell. You have really important things to share. You have, we believe, a bigger message or mission or passions on your heart. And we want to make sure that we're helping you get the hell out of your own way, right? And
yeah.
Figuring out the solutions, the opportunities, the resources, whatever you need to be able to either implement on your own or leverage team resources, whatever that fits exactly what you need, so you can finally share what it is you really want to share and do what it is you really want to do. So we're going to ask some of those questions.
Beautiful.
Anything else you want to add, Chris?
I love it. That was great. Nope, that's perfect.
Beautiful. All right. Well, let's start with the first one. The first one that we get constantly, that I feel like every single person, no matter at what stage in business, has either asked this of themselves multiple times or at multiple levels, no matter if you're 6-figure, multi-7, 9-figure, there's sometimes an issue of, I have so many thoughts and that's what makes me so special or why I'm so good at what I do. And at the same time, it's my kryptonite.
Yep.
It's what I struggle with because I have too many thoughts in my head. How do I organize what to say and how to say it to where it really lands with the people that I want to connect most with? So, Chris,
yes.
What would you say to that person?
I think when you have so many ideas that you can't pick which idea to talk about, I think when you're talking about content marketing, what matters is that people get the conviction through the camera. So out of all the ideas, what you have to do is you have to pick the one that you're most currently sparked by, right? If you just look at all the buffet of ideas, then you're going to be overwhelmed and there'll be no spark. Yeah. So you have to start to mine for or go deep on the one that's resonating with you the most right now, because that's what's going to generate the conviction through the camera. That's what creates influence.
Well, let's take a step back. So just think about a time too, because if we're saying that to somebody else who's swirling in the rabbit hole, right? Yeah. That might sound well and good, but when you're left to your own devices, swirling in the rabbit hole, all these amazing ideas, what's the question you could even ask yourself to mine deeper? The question I like to ask to mine deeper is what am I learning right now? Or what am I
coming up against right now. Like whenever, use life. Every day you're living life. This is where I get so people are like, I don't have anything to say, or I have too many things to say. Right. But right now, life is teaching you something. And in life, you are bumping up against something today, not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. You encountered something and it either pissed you off or it excited you or something. And it's your job as a communicator to find the bridge between what happened in life today and what you get to share with the rest of us from your perspective, your worldview as a thought leader. Right?
Okay. What if I'm going to ask like a whole bunch of other questions because these are the thoughts that other people have, right? Cool. So what if I don't have a platform right now that is around things like that I want to share? What if in my mind, I have all these different ideas and I get inspired by a book or a life happening, but I want to be able to share it in a way where I feel like people are listening? Like, do I just go live on my Facebook, or what kind of I feel like I need a container to, to share instead of just throwing something into the interwebs.
Yeah. So to clarify, you're saying like, what if I don't have an audience, or what if I don't have fans on my Facebook page, or what if I don't even have a Facebook page?
Or what if it's a different message than the business you're currently in?
Got it. Okay. Well, look, I think where I come from in the world of content marketing is like, it's more important that you speak what your soul wants to say. Right. So if, for example, my background's real estate. So, if what your soul is saying is, I really want to talk to parents about how to raise kids in this modern era to be connected, but your background and your fan base is all built around real estate. You're like, well, how am I going to talk about raising kids and family when everybody knows me as a real estate agent? Is that what you're saying? Like that, right?
Totally.
Yep. And so, like, the first part of that is just realizing, like, you've got to distinguish between your soul's work, your platform for influence, and where you've been playing in the past, right? So that's the first thing. Is I don't care if you have no container for, or no platform, no fan base around this new message that's welling up inside you. You have to go where your soul is leading you. You have to go there, even if like, where is it? When does it start? You got to start somewhere.
That's so true. Yeah.
So start now, because now is the time that your soul is communicating with you. You can't wait for a following.
Well, and I think about going on the other side, like, because I was very much in that same situation where I had a following in my previous business, a very firm following, and the messages that I wanted to share were completely opposite, almost polarizing to the people that I had previously worked with and attracted. And so I felt almost a duty, or like a lapse in integrity or responsibility of like, oh, I should just be nurturing or just be talking about this because that's what people know me as and that's how I should serve. But just like you're saying, like, my soul was asking for something else, and I kept ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it. And the longer we do that, the longer the message gets shoved deeper into the crevices to where I feel like that's when it gets harder to share. Until we're just willing to just show up and start freaking sharing it. Similar to what you are, right? Like, you have an experience, you read a book, something that sparks you that you can just, that's when you start.
I think, so on that, I think the other thing that people get wrong when they think about content marketing is they think that every post has to be perfect. Every post has to be a home run. And the thing is, like, when you really dive into content marketing, beyond a transaction, but you dive into content marketing as a collection of your life's work. Like, you need to think about this process of content marketing as building a body of work. And if you think of it that way, it takes a lot of pressure off of you having to, like, say this right perfectly in a 30-second or even a 1 minute, 30-minute soundbite. This is an iteration.
Right.
So you start now, and tomorrow and the next day and the next day, it starts to morph and evolve into what it is you're really trying to say.
I was laughing because I accidentally loaded ourselves talking
on
nice. Facebook as I was like, oh, well, hold on a second. I think similar to what you just said, I think that's where you also, when we can allow ourselves to not be attached to the outcome or exactly what the thing looks like, or like, oh, okay, I'm going to talk about this.
Right.
And instead we just allow ourselves to hold space for what comes through and what we start to find, like you said, like what we start to find, we get more sparked or inspired by, and we just allow ourselves to mold into the flow, that can help us evolve into that container that all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is really what I'm here to be sharing. And it might change later on down the road, but at least now you've given yourself some type of structure to stay focused on a single idea in that container, rather than continuing to swirl not only in the rabbit hole, but also continuing to swirl in suppressing your message, which is.
Yep, totally. I remember it was several months ago, I was just checking in on some of the stuff Russell Brunson was doing with ClickFunnels, right? And he had a 30-day funnel challenge. And I love this analogy that he used. He was talking about, comics will oftentimes go test their material in smaller nightclubs, right? So they may have 10 sets or 10 jokes, and maybe 8 of the 10 jokes are a flop, but 2 jokes really hit. So they go, oh, note down these 2 ideas were successful, the other 8 weren't.
Right.
And they will develop, to get a whole set of good jokes, they may have to go through a bunch of different things, trying them out in front of an audience to see what people resonate with. But it's the same with your content marketing. Like, right, this is what I'm saying. Too many people are trying to hit a home run on every piece of content, and they're not giving themselves enough freedom and grace to fail through what doesn't resonate.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I think that's a big distinction too. And another question that a lot of people ask, and similar to my experience of, what if this is really what I know I'm meant to be sharing and it's not resonating, right? Like, similar to the comic, maybe your closest friends and your manager all tell you like, that joke is it. That's the one to lead with. But you go to a couple different clubs and it flops.
Yeah.
But I think the distinction is, it's not always about what resonates with other people, but it's more so about what's the circle you've cultivated so far? Like, what are those nightclubs? Did you go to like 3 different nightclubs that are all in a similar area that attract a similar type of person?
Right.
So like, if I would have just only shared that one message that was completely almost polarizing to the audience that I'd built, of course it wouldn't resonate. And it actually didn't for the most part. Yep. But then the more I allowed myself, again, the fluidity to just keep sharing what was on my heart periodically, I didn't do it consistently because I had some of that stuff that held me back. I would get these messages and just these things of like, oh my God, I love where your messaging is going. I love what you're sharing lately. And from, let's say, several 100,000, not several 100,000, but like 1,000 people that were firm followers in my old capacity, I would get inklings of like 5, then 10, then 15. And it didn't happen all at once, but because it was almost pruning, right? And like filtering out the people that it really was never going to resonate. But then finally with the people that were ready to hear what I was really there to share and that were of similar mindset and just awareness, it resonated, right? So it's not just always like, oh, I'm sharing this, but it's not resonating. Well, let's also take into consideration the current community that are surrounding you. And maybe you just need time to grow a new community.
I think too many, I love that, because I feel like too many people are trying to say what they think their current audience wants to hear. And so they're actually filtering and tweaking the pureness of what their soul is trying to say, right? What's welling up in their soul. And so what's actually great about content marketing is, and this is, you need some patience, right? You just need patience, especially if you're starting out with your message. But what's so beautiful about content marketing is when you say what you really want to say, regardless of who's listening, what happens is it finds its way into the pockets of the right people, and your content actually attracts your tribe, right? Like, your message goes out like a beacon, like a frequency, and it actually pulls to it the people that want that message. And what's cool about content marketing is you only have to record it once to broadcast to all kinds of different people, right? Like if you use Facebook ads, this is a great way to use Facebook ads. You start to play with and test who you put that show in front of, and you start to see how people respond to this message.
Yeah, completely. Well, I think that's another thing that brings up a question that most people have is, if they're doing some of that content, or they're doing it and they think that they're doing it fairly consistently, or they've grown a business to a certain caliber, but they just know that they are meant for so much more, right? Like they look at people like Tim Ferriss or Gary Vee or Daniel Laporte or Marie Forleo or whoever. They're like, not only they see them as these content powerhouses, but those beacons that just, it's like they're there, they've made it, right? And so the question becomes, I'm just as talented, I've been sharing this, why isn't this working? Or how am I not there yet? What are they doing that's different than what I need to be doing? Like, how do you first answer that?
Yeah. I love this. I spoke to this a couple months ago where, speaking of Tim Ferriss, he wrote in his accelerated learning, where he deconstructs like how things work to learn them faster. He talks about looking at what's explicit, like he goes and interviews experts and he's like, well, how did you do this? And he listens for what they actually say, which is the explicit thing that they're saying. This is how I did it. But then he also listens for what's implicit, what they didn't say, but that he can perceive, right?
Right.
And I think that's the piece that when people are learning content marketing, they're like, oh, well, Tim Ferriss said this and Gary Vee said 5 things this way. And we're just listening for what's explicitly being said, and we're not picking up on the things happening in the background. And one of the things I think that's happening in the background of people's success in this digital age is there are networks. People have networks and relationships with people, and they don't say that when they talk about content marketing. They say, oh, we'll post 5-7 times a day and post and do and say these things and do these things, but they don't talk about the relationships they've cultivated.
Totally.
I think that goes under-missed big time, or under-mentioned big time.
Yeah, because it goes, I mean, I can't remember, like Kevin Bacon's, what is it?
Yeah, 7 degrees of separation. Whatever, yeah.
And that's even just one of the things that we encourage all of our clients to do. Like, how can you accelerate your groundswell? How can you accelerate your message getting to more of like-minded people, or calling awareness to people that you believe this will, they'll get it at a certain level, right? And it's, okay, who is in my circle that also has an audience? Or who are influencers that I could interview, or I could do something with, some type of a collaboration with, to where then, one, I'm still serving my audience as well as producing content for my audience. And then I'm getting access to their audience, they're serving their audience, and it's a double hitter, right? But it's it goes back to like, there are strategies to not just producing, you got to produce content, relevant, good content, have it be in multiple places, have it be produced consistently. People only hear from you like once a week or once every couple of weeks, let alone once a month.
Right.
You're not going to resonate like the people who are just there all the time.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming, or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
And then more specifically, how can you gain access to other audiences, especially already cultivated and nurtured audiences, without you having to do all of that extra legwork? And that comes into the relationships and the networks and doing partner promotions. So
totally that. I think one of the things that was so awesome about podcasting or having a show was that it gave me access to people who were further down the road of influence than I was, right? So I'm a no-name person, but I could reach out to somebody like Chris Brogan, Hal Elrod, who wrote Miracle Morning, Jay Papasan, co-author of The One Thing. I could reach out to these people who have been further down the road of success than I had at the time and say, listen, I have a show. I'd love to interview you on my show. And they said yes. I'm like, they don't know me, but who am I that they would be on my show? And yet there was an opportunity to start to create relationship and expand my network through having a show, right? Which is, I think, really important when you start to understand that we're humans. At the heart of all of this, we're humans. We're not bots, right? We don't go out and crawl the internet for all sorts of content. We're now getting overwhelmed by content. So we, as humans, we're actually like filtering big time.
Totally.
Right. And then if you want to get past the filter, you got to have relationship.
Well, and again, we're adding strategy, just like you said. When somebody goes, I'm just as talented, how come my thing's not working, or it's not working as fast, and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You look at not only the content, or like you said, the explicit, the thing that somebody is doing, but you also look for the unspokens and the things that they aren't doing.
Right.
So, and to me, that's where I dissect strategy, and I go, oh, okay, like Frank Kern or something. Oh, he did this video with this person who has, did it in these different publishings and yada, yada, yada. But would you ever expect somebody like a Frank or a Marie or a Danielle to just, if somebody either A, doesn't already have an audience or doesn't have some type of a container, a show that feels more formal rather than I'm just some random human. I mean, we're going live here, but we're also going to repurpose this, right? There's strategy behind this and multiple different functions. So is somebody like a Danielle Laporte just going to go live on, any Joe Schmo's Facebook Live? Probably not. But when you create a little bit more structure with it being a show, a podcast that can reach more people, it's leverageable in terms of it can be accessed at multiple different timelines later on down the road, right?
Yeah.
That's when those types of people, they go, oh, okay, there's even more value to me putting my time on this beyond the other maybe benefits. I like this person, yada, yada, yada. So
can I piggyback on that, or do you have more to?
Of course I have more questions to ask.
Totally interrupting, but because I want to tie these two ideas together. Like, one is for you to invite a Danielle Laporte or a Chris Brogan or a somebody who you would want to be on your show. You have to have spent enough time in the conversation of your message to sound intelligent to them.
Yes.
Right. So if you get the opportunity, oh my God, if you get the opportunity, maybe you named your show perfect. Like, this is what we do with our clients. We actually help them name their show. So it creates the right frame or container for their message. But if you have the right name and some VIP or influencer says yes to being on your show, and then you bomb the interview because you didn't have enough depth to your message to have to dance in the conversation with somebody of that caliber, it's going to affect how viral that goes. Like, if people, like, they may not share it. They'll be like, well, we'll just chalk that up to an hour I wasted. I'm not going to share that person's, that guy's, Chris's episode because I didn't like the way that went.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. And it happens.
Absolutely. It happens. And so that's my whole point, is like, some of you need to keep, you're trying to hit a home run on your content, and you're not thinking of it as an iterative process where you have to just keep showing up and develop it. Because trust me, over time, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. But if you don't ever get in the game, or you get in the game inconsistently or infrequently,
right,
then you don't develop your depth of knowledge or understanding or wisdom of that topic.
Yes, completely. Well, and another implicit or unspoken thing here being said, like, if you're super green, if you got all these ideas and you're like still trying to hone in and mine deeper into, okay, what's really there? What's the meat of what you're here to share? Wait before you go interviewing a whole bunch of people, because if not, then, and another question that comes up, or a problem that most people say, they're like, my marketing feels like it's all over the place. My content feels like it's all over the place. Well, I get that. I mean, like, I'm a visionary and a creative just as much as I am an executor and a detail, person.
Right.
But because of that creation and where my brain goes when I think about different areas, I mean, on one day I could be completely focused on and so convicted and passionate about just maybe, profit margin growth inside of business and the difference between revenue and all of that good stuff. And I could like do a message on that. And then another day I could be so into my hippie tree hugging zone, posting all of my pictures and meditation and oming and, like all of this random stuff, that if somebody were to come into that space, they're like, okay, I get that she has many different sides, but what am I here to receive from this space from her? Right. And that's, I think, the importance of also just cultivating and putting intention behind when we put a space into, like, and I say a platform, if we're going to leverage something like Facebook, if you decide you want your personal page to be all of the things, cool, have that be all of the things. And then if you want another type of container, maybe it's your Instagram or a business profile, to be more intentional that's when your people can come to you and resonate even more deeply and frequently with the content that you're sharing, because you're not showing all sides of yourself all of the different times. It's not to say that your space or your brand or your business can't showcase certain things about your values or your family or other aspects, but there's a balance between how much of what goes on upstairs or how you are. I mean, even the memes, I'm like, I am so the yogi that's driving to, yoga studio with mala beads, listening to gangster rap Coolio. Like, nice. Right? Like, that is so how I am.
I love it.
So if I just let my content reign in that capacity, people are going to get a little bit confused. So
yeah. I think, what's interesting though about, especially interview formats, which is primarily the format we use with our clients at our agency. Like, we have guides or co-hosts that actually interview you. So, you're the host, you're the thought leader, we're your wingman. We're actually interviewing you and pulling out of you what you want to say. Interview formats are very forgiving. So you could, as much as we will use questions to help guide the conversation towards the what we call buckets or the topics inside your brand that you want to talk about, it's cool to be like, I was driving to my yoga class today, listening to gangster rap while I was like holding on to beads or whatever, whatever he said, right? And it's cool because it humanizes you. It makes you somebody who is like relatable, and I get to see behind the curtains of who you really are. So, don't feel like, as you guys listen to this, don't feel like you have to be on brand all the time, because it's what makes you human.
Yeah. And I think this all comes down to just being aware of what you're putting out there. And again, with intention, but also not being wholesomely attached to it always has to look and be a certain way. Like, allow yourself the fluidity to play in that space while also being intentional with what you're creating. Yeah. So I want to ask one last question that is one of the biggest ones. They're like, how do I create good marketing or good content consistently when I always struggle to share what it is I do?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that above all else. Like, I resonate most with this because I grew up winning international awards in business and marketing in high school. I had no idea what I was doing at 15. I just somehow had this gene in me that I knew how to do business and marketing. And yet in the past, when I've wanted to create my own brand, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, what am I going to say on the website? Like, I'll get it done eventually. Yeah. Or like, I'm going to create my, my content calendar, blank. Or like, I share it and then I'm going, okay, I don't really think that was what I wanted to say. And then some people are like, oh, that was a decent post. I'm still not exactly sure what it is you do, because we're all so close to the things that we do. So what do you say to somebody who's struggling like that?
Yeah. I think when you have a hard time describing what it is you do to other people, again, it's an iterative process. So the more you can talk about it, the tighter your message gets, right? The more you talk through, and again, interviews are great for this, because I think sometimes when you don't have to be prepared and you don't have like some like cheat sheet in front of you to have to say a certain soundbite.
Totally.
I think, I think truth actually wells up easier when you're just being present in a conversation, not having to look at a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
When you're in an interview and somebody's asking you questions, stuff comes out, you're like, oh, that was really good. Like, I'll do that. I'll actually be in interviews with people interview me and I'm like, oh, I just said that. Like, I think that was really good what I just said. Like, that was really succinct. But it's really hard to plan that. You can't plan the succinctness. It just happens in conversation and you're like, you surprise yourself. You know?
Which is one of the reasons why when we were looking at doing this, it was, let's not make sure that we are helping clients just show up and push record and know what to say. It's okay. You need to be in a conversation, because that's oftentimes when you're out of your head and just into your body and into your genius, when the shit just comes out. And our clients have said that frequently. When they're in conversation on their shows, it's some of the best content that they've ever created, because they just show up, they have fun, and they speak what's really on their heart. And so I feel like that's the solution that so many people can implement, is whether you do your own show, your own content, whatever, do it somehow. If you're struggling, do it somehow in a conversation. Either you're on other people's podcasts, again, making sure that that's valuable time for you to be spending, that their audience is your audience and vice versa. or you're having your own show and you're also being interviewed by somebody like in a format like we do, or you are just in collaboration, maybe with a friend or a colleague or something, and you can do lives. Or maybe you're just committed to like going and doing networking type of functions, right? Where when people ask you what you do, just allow yourself to be in a process that creates consistency with how you are sharing what you're sharing, where people are drawing it out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so helpful. One of the reasons, again, we created this whole agency service that we do, where we interview you and draw out of you your genius and what you have to say to the world, is because I loved being interviewed. Like I preferred that people ask me questions, because I always have something to say. If you ask me a question, like I have perspective. I think, those of us that have spent time in life reflecting on how the world works or how our craft works, we have opinions, but the minute we stare into a camera, we get stuck. We're like, I don't know. So I loved it when people would ask me questions, and I'm like, well, I'm going to ask other people questions. I love asking people questions. And you're right. Our clients really thrive on and rave about how easy the process is, because they don't have to think of what to say. Your truth is already inside you.
Yeah.
You don't have to prep. You do not have to prepare for what's true for you.
Right. Completely.
It's hardwired into you.
Well, let's sum this all up. I mean, there's more questions we can ask.
Yeah.
We're going to keep doing our Groundswell lives.
Yeah.
In some, it's just having fluidity. It's giving yourself permission to play and just allow the process to unfold, while also mining as deep as you can into what is really sparking you and where your passions really lie. While also, when you're looking at, okay, well, how can I accelerate this, and how can I really get this thing out there in a bigger way? Because I know I have just as much, if not more, than the Tims and the Maries and the Danielles. Cool. Like, look at the content or the way that they're doing certain things, and then look underneath that for what's not being said or not being shared, and like understand that there are always back end workings, and there are always different ways to do something that can make it a heck of a lot easier and faster than us trying to push it up the mountain ourselves.
Yep.
And then, well, what's the last point? I already brain farted the last point.
Well, I don't even know. There's too many. We had so many points.
We had so many.
You have to go back through and listen.
Passion, conviction, just giving yourself the space to play.
Yeah. And I would say, and here's the cool part about this type of a format. Again, like this was an interview. What we just did together, Allie and I, is exactly that's what our service is. It's an interview, right? And the cool part is you listening to this can go back through and re-listen, and whatever point needs to be there for you will be there for, like, you'll hear what you need to hear. Right? Yeah. We can summarize, hey, there were 5 points we covered, but there was one today. I'm sure if you go back and listen to this, there was at least one point that really connected with your soul. And you're like, oh, that one is mine. And now you just need to go to work on that. Like that's.
Just go do something with that. Exactly. Don't consume any more content. Go do something with the thing that landed deeply, and do that and focus on that.
Yeah.
You're going to create magic.
Yeah. So good. I would end with this, Allie. Those of you listening, if you're like, hey, I get it. Like, I get that it's easier to do this type of content with other people. Like, this is what we exactly designed our agency for. So you guys can go to mygroundswell.com to learn more about our agency and if our packages are a good fit for you or not. But definitely check us out, mygroundswell.com. There's also a free course on there. So if you're like, you just want to check out more about like who we are, what we do, feel free to get the free course. There's 3 videos on that free course, including an equipment checklist and all the things you need to do to set yourself up for a show. Like, check that out as well. So
yeah, because maybe you want to do it on your own. Maybe that's your cup of tea. So have at it. It's just it goes back to, like, too many people are constricting the message in their heart, and I feel like a lack of connection to ourselves is what creates the biggest distance and lack of connection to other people. So the more that we can support people and just sharing what's on their heart and what they're really here to share, I believe that's how the biggest problems of the world get solved, and that's just how the world becomes a happier place. So
big time. Yep. That's so good. I love this. This was fun, Allie. For our first Groundswell Live, like, we should do this either once a week or every day. I don't know. Like,
I know.
somewhere in between there.
You would do it every day.
I would do it every day.
Me and my hermit shell would be like, okay, once a week, Chris.
Right. But this is so easy. It's so easy to do this, and it's so fun.
It is.
I mean, tell me, isn't your energy higher on the end of this conversation?
Oh, right? Yeah. Before we got on, I was like, I think I'm feeling a little sickly today. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm totally good.
I know. Like, that's it. Like, I'm on fire right now. I'm riding, I'm riding high on clouds and harps and angel wings.
Yeah. Which is another thing of like, how can I produce more content consistently? Hey, when you're riding the cloud and you're riding the fire,
yeah.
Go create more shit from that
right.
state, from that
That's
zone
right.
of energy.
That's right. It's
good
good.
nugget there.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
we could keep going, but
we could. So this is probably going to be on our podcast and all that good stuff, but if you're watching this, just expect that we're going to be doing a heck of a lot more for this. So tune in and check out maybe some of the notifications that we're going to be going live, and we'll hopefully be able to set this on a recurring schedule so you can plan for it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, actually, the place to find that in Facebook Live would be go to Groundswell Agency. You can just go to facebook.com/Groundswell Agency. You'll find our page, like our page. You can even click see first, like go to notifications and go to see first. That way, when we have these types of Facebook Lives, you guys can jump in and be notified that we're going live. So
yeah, and I didn't squirrel more with the questions. So if anybody has other questions or comments, we will answer those when we're offline. But
perfect. Thanks, Sally. Great stuff today.
And thanks to everybody who's listening either on the live or in the replay. Like, hey, if you're listening to the replay, just let us know that you're tuning in on the replay, and just give us a heart or a smile, just so we know like this is landing with people, because we want to be consistently sharing content that's also helping you with your content. So let us know if you have more things that you want us to share about in the future. So
awesome. Good stuff.
I adore you, my friends, my business partner. I am just so grateful to be able to play in this space. Our high five.
High five. Nice. I know.
All right.
All right,
next time.
Until next time. See ya.
Bye.
Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.